All right, thank you for staying with us on the program this afternoon. We'll be looking critically on Nigeria's public debt profile, the impact on the economy, and MSMEs or SMEs as the case may be. But before I usher in my guest, let me give you a preamble. Now, Nigeria's public debt is the total amount of money the country owes, including both domestic and external debt. As of the end of the third quarter of 2024, Nigeria's public debt was 142.32 trillion naira, amounting to 88.89 billion US dollars. How has Nigeria's public debt changed over time? That's the question everyone is asking. In the second quarter of 2023, Nigeria's public debt was 87.38 trillion naira, which was a 75.27% increase from the first quarter of 2023. In the first quarter of 2024, Nigeria's public debt was 121.67 trillion naira, which was a 24.99% increase from the fourth quarter of 2023. In the third quarter of 2024, the public debt increased to 142.32 trillion naira, which was an increase from the third quarter of 2023. In the second quarter of 2023, 8.05% of Nigeria's public debt was external, 61.95% was domestic. In the third quarter of 2023, the percentage of the external debt increased to 36.38%, while the percentage of domestic debt increased to 63.62%. The Debt Management Office, the DMO, conducts a regular debt sustainability analysis, DSA, to assess the sustainability of the nation's and the national debt profile. The DMO uses the result of the DSAs to advise the government on its borrowing policy and strategy. Joining me this afternoon, or rather joining us this afternoon on the show to take a critical look on Nigeria's public debt, 142.13 trillion naira. That's a huge sum. I have joining us Benedict Ochagu. Benedict Ochagu is an entrepreneur. I can also call him an economist because he understands very well how the economic indices actually work. Good afternoon, Benedict, and good to have you. Happy New Year. This is the first time we're doing this for the year.
Good afternoon.
Good to be here.
Good afternoon, yes.
All right. You heard my prologue, my preamble, how the debt climbed from first quarter to second quarter to third quarter. Between the fourth quarter now of 2024 till now, I'm pretty sure we borrowed. But the Debt Management Office hasn't given us the figure yet. We'll work with their figure. What is the impact of our continuous and incessant borrowing, whether domestic or external debt, to the economy, to small businesses, to the country as a whole?
Well, as it were, every country borrows.
Okay.
The largest economy in the world is USA, with about $30 trillion economy. Yeah. And I think the last time I checked, they were the largest debtor in terms of public debt.
Okay.
So that will tell you that it is not only peculiar to Nigeria that we borrow. Okay. And China also borrow. Despite that we're indebted to them,
exactly.
Also indebted
exactly. That's what we do there.
Every country of the world. Okay. That will not make us to begin to delve into why borrow.
Why borrow?
What is the essence of borrowing and all of that. Borrowing is a mechanism for social change, for infrastructural development. Okay. And so when a country wants to develop, to take a very major stride in terms of development, it is expected that the source for external fund. Mind you that sometimes, especially for the developed countries, it is not, they don't borrow because of lack of fund within their economy sometimes. It is because they don't want to burden the citizens. They don't want to burden their pocket. And so because of that, you resort to external borrowing that will give you time and then you recuperate economically and repay all of those things because you trust the project you are borrowing to invest in, you trust the infrastructures you are borrowing to invest in. And so when we now narrow it back home here, the problem we have back home is not because we borrow. The problem is exactly what we borrow to do. when we borrow, what do we do with the money we borrow? Because the money will continue to accumulate.
Yeah.
The interest will continue to service the debt. Yeah. We will, and then the interest will continue to accumulate. And also, mind you, because of the dwindling nature of our currency, the interest will continue to increase. And then again, for example, in 2023, when the former president, of course, I have always been here criticizing the policies of the former president, and some people thought maybe we were paid by opposition to do that. But we are seeing the outcome of some of those things, because here I told you that the economy is a very stubborn social science. When people talk, when people come here to talk as politicians, we're not speaking as politicians. Exactly. We're speaking as people who understand how these things work. In reality. We're speaking as people who are always out there in the market, seeing the market interaction, seeing the percentage of inflation and all of that. So when we come here to talk, we know exactly sometimes what we are talking about. But politicians also come to gaslight Nigerians and all of that. But that's not what we are saying right now. What we are saying is that when Buhari was leaving office, he left with about 97 trillion as public debt. Now, within the 2 years of President Bola Tinubu, it is now 142.3. You see the astronomical increase. Now, in fairness to the current administration, this astronomical increase in the public debt is not really as a result of maybe the amount or the money they have borrowed so far. Over time. It is as a result of the accumulation that is coming, the effect of the accumulation coming from the former administration. Because no thanks to the policy of the current government, because they actually caused this for themselves. Their policies has not been working. Their policies has been so bizarre, they have been so out of it, and that is what has accumulated our public debt to this level. Because when it was 97 trillion, the dollar to naira rate was about 400. Okay, 400. Official rate. That's true. In official rate, about 450. Let's just say 450, 500 thereabout. You understand? Yeah. But why in the parallel market it was about 700 thereabout. Yeah. So now, immediately this government took over. After some months, there were policies of devaluing the naira. Automatically, as soon as you devalue the naira, of course, your external debt will automatically rise. Because the naira, you borrowed in dollar, and the servicing will also always be in dollar. So when you devalue your currency, then the external debt will automatically increase. And the IMF knows that. That's why they always encourage us to devalue our currency. Because when you devalue our currency, we will continue to be indebted outside. And as long as you continue to be indebted outside, like I was listening to just speak about that the borrower is a servant to the lender. So it's a scheme to keep the developing countries like Nigeria under them, so that they continue to make sure that they continue to control us. But it's quite unfortunate that our leadership has not shown that level of smartness, that level of intentionality to be able to build a system and a country that will have a say among the Committee of Nations. The last time we had a president that actually had that vision, had that drive to be able to build an economic system, because for you to be powerful among the Committee of Nations, there are only two factors. Military and economic. The number one is economy. You must be economically powerful, then militarily powerful, because if you are not economically powerful, you cannot build strong military system. So now, Obasanjo was the last president that actually was so intentional. Of course, we can also give credit to Goodluck Jonathan, considering the GDP that he handed over. That was superb. But Obasanjo was so intentional and building a system, not just building a system, but also driving a course of writing off our external debt. And that he was able to achieve that in 2007 before he left office. That was an intentional leader. I expected that especially the APC government, coming with the mantra of change, should have been able to at least consolidate on that and then bring Nigeria to a speed where we'll be able to say, okay, this is where we are. For example, I've said that this is what Obasanjo did economically, that he was able to write off our debt. And then I have been able to say that this is what Jonathan did. He left a GDP of about $516 billion. That is something that will tell you, that is a take home, that you could be able to say, okay, the other one wrote off the debt, was able to work hard to write off the debt, the other one left it's something, a kind of GDP that is above half of $1 trillion. That is massive. Yeah. That was massive. But now we are talking about almost 200 billion. That is half of what Jonathan left. So when we look at it, we ask ourselves questions of, are we actually making progress
or retrogressing?
Retrogressing.
Right. So that informs my next question, because I appreciate the fact that you've laid the background as to why borrowing, whether domestic or external borrowing, is not a crime. Because it's all about development, national development, economic development. So when you go out to borrow, it is viewed that you have a growing concern that you want to address. Now, looking at the fact that we have seen successive governments, especially dating as far back as 2015.
Okay, Josh, sorry to cut you. The PD just informed we'll have to go on a short break.
All right.
When we return from the break, your question. We'll go on a short break on the show. Stay with us.
This week. All right, thank you so much for joining us. You're watching Business This Week. And of course, we were talking about the issue of debt profile of Nigeria precisely. And when we dropped off, I was about asking our guest as regards what is the reason behind our indebtedness. And then it brings me to the question about fiscal policy. I was saying earlier before we dropped off that starting from the Buhari-led administration in 2015 up to now, we've seen the level of borrowings. And much more, what we spend when it comes to fiscal policy, there is a discrepancy. What Nigeria claims to earn when it comes to selling of our crude oil and what we spend doesn't seem to balance. And there is this school of thought that says, if you spend more than what you earn, there is always going to be a possibility of you being bankrupt.
That's true.
Does that in any way speaks to the fact as to why Nigeria is where we are today? Looking at what we generate from crude oil vis-a-vis what we spend.
Well, for an individual, that analogy of spending more than you earn will always keep you in debt. For that analogy, it has to do with an individual. But when it comes to a corporation, an entity like a nation, that analogy does not really speak volume. The reason is that as a nation, because especially a nation that has a large landmass like ours, there will always be demand for infrastructural development, especially for a developing nation. You can never always have enough revenue, generate enough revenue to spend.
So if you say we cannot always have enough revenue to spend, where is the funding coming from when we spend on consumption? For instance, the last time we heard about savings that was supposed to have been accrued from subsidy removal, it was spent on frivolities. For instance, the issue of the SUV to the tune of 160 million times 300 plus House of, Representatives in the legislature.
469.
So if you tell me now that we cannot always have enough revenue to go around critical infrastructures, where is the funding coming from for such kind of consumption? Was it appropriated for?
All right, Joshua, if I get you correctly, you are trying to draw two parallels right now. We're talking about infrastructure, economic development. Vis-a-vis the public debt profile. Now, you are veering off to issue of corruption. You understand?
No,
that is an entirely different thing.
Why I'm saying this is because I'm staying on factors that causes indebtedness.
Now,
one of which is the fiscal policy. Now, I said there is a discrepancy when it comes to money Nigeria generates, for instance, when we sell crude oil, and what we spend on. And you said in your submission, we cannot always have enough revenue to go around. Where is the revenue coming from that we spend on consumption? E.g., the SUVs.
Just, I came here this afternoon as a very gentleman. You want to push me?
You're still a gentleman. I'm always
going to push me into that area. The truth is that since 2015 till now, even before 2015, our propensity to consume has always been very high.
Yeah.
And that is because of lack of prudence, lack of
planning?
No, of course, planning has always been there. Lack of accountability.
Yeah.
Of course, we are in this nation where you are even talking about buying SUVs, where you can also say that this was done for the National Assembly from this to this. In this country, an accountant general of the Federation under the former administration was able to steal above 100 billion. Mind you that an accountant general...
But we can say allege anyway.
Okay. We can say allege to substantiate anything you're talking here.
Of course, but as a fact, is
still within the realm of
speculation. The EFCC, and he has not been able to clear his name.
But let's just say at the realm of allege.
Until was alleged. Okay, according to you, that is over 100 billion.
Yeah.
Now, the point I was making, not to accuse him, but the point I was making is that an accountant general does not have an office as a minister that he submits budget.
Absolutely.
He doesn't have an appropriation.
Absolutely.
It means
that not budget money for his office.
Too much money flowing around
him.
That an accountant general will have that impetus to steal above 100 billion. That will tell you the level of recklessness that is within the purview of our system. That is a topic for another day. There are a lot of wastages and there is lack of accountability. And the problem we are having today in Nigeria is that heightened lack of accountability. That is the problem we are having.
So accountability is one of the reasons why the money Nigeria generates is not commensurate to what we spend. Is that what you're saying?
Of course. That's part of it. That there is no accountability. For example, the NNPC has been running for over how many years? Without giving, there's no forensic audits. They just come up and they say anything. And Nigerians were, for me, Nigeria is not practicing democracy. To be honest with you.
That's from your own point of view.
Yeah, for me, Nigeria is not practicing democracy. Because if we are practicing democracy, the former administration, the administration of President Muhammad Buhari, run the nation borrowing, run the nation for 7 years.
8 years. Let's not say 7 years.
Let's say for 7 years, CBN did not submit annual reports. For 7 years, CBN did not submit annual report.
Under the administration of our brother,
of course. And it is in the CBN annual report that that is what captures our borrowing level. That's what captures what is our internal, our foreign reserve generating. And it was after he almost, when he was leaving office, that we now find out that our foreign reserve was almost gone. Do you understand? That boils down to lack of accountability. Absolutely. You see, we seem to play politics with everything. That's why right now a lot of people are coming from different quarters that Tinubu must go, this must happen, this must happen. And then you ask a question, where have you been since the last 7 years, since the last 8 years, when the country was plundered economically, when the country was run by a few that doesn't even understand what economy is? And so we are not even trying to talk about the wastages. Of course, as long as Nigeria is corrupt, our system is corrupt. There's no doubt about that. When we are talking about corruption, corruption is endemic in Nigeria. It's not just about the politicians alone. The civil service everywhere. The civil service is more corrupt than what happened in the political platform.
They were the one who actually aids the process.
They aid the process.
Without the civil service,
what we are saying is that when we borrow, for example, Buhari continued, in fact, the second name of Buhari was borrowing. But no accountability. We didn't even know the level. There was some of the borrowing when eventually CBN released 7 years report. There were some of the borrowing that didn't even go through the National Assembly.
That's even a discussion for
another day. It didn't even go through the proper channel. And you say we are practicing democracy. Nigeria is not practicing democracy. So we are just having a cliche. But in practice, we are not practicing democracy. So now we continue to borrow, and then if we don't even know how you borrowed, how do we even know how you spent it?
How you spend what you borrow.
So there's no proper channel of accountability.
Accountability and of course transparency in the spending. Because even up till now, it remains even a gray area for Nigerians to know how much actually was gulped into the presidential private jets.
Oh, they denied that.
We are still to know.
Or do you have any information that we do not know?
Now we don't even know till today. And then again, of course, Nigeria is in a very pathetic situation. The reason is that we have leaders that are not visionary. For example, when you borrow to do projects, if you are borrowing, if Buhari had, for example, borrowed, because he spent 8 years borrowing, if he had spent those 8 years also investing in infrastructure development.
We saw the completion of Second Niger Bridge.
The completion of Second Niger Bridge. What is the economic value of the Second Niger Bridge?
Okay.
That the first Niger Bridge is not providing.
Now talk to me, based on this, now talk to me about capital expenditure.
That is where.
Because what we are looking at now is the factors that affect Nigeria's indebtedness. Yeah. Now he raised issue about the Second Niger Bridge, right? Yeah. Now talk to us about projects that do not in any way give or bring Nigeria any economic value, which also creates a problem with our spending, because we spend so much. I mean, I'll give you an example of a governor, without mentioning him, who went to put a pedestrian bridge where nobody uses.
No, you are talking about a pedestrian bridge. You're talking about David Umay of Ebonyi State.
I don't want to mention names.
David Umay of
I don't want to mention names,
but we are in public domain.
Yeah,
David Umay of
between you and I,
the former governor of Ebonyi State.
Between you and I, we know the governor.
It is not needed.
Yes.
We built an airport with which is not viable to the state. That plane does not land for almost 12 months.
We are the ones saying it. So now the point is, how do we begin? Because we'll get to a point where we'll talk about the effect. The effect on the economy, that's where we're extension SME.
Ebonyi is one of the poorest states in Nigeria, and they have an airport that is not being used, that billions were spent on.
We talked about it earlier. So what do you think needs to be done to start plugging those holes?
Yeah.
So
the loopholes should be covered.
Politicians, or by extension, public officers, do not use that as an opportunity to fritter away.
Would have had in the well.
So what do you think would be done when it comes to capital expenditure?
Well, the thing is that as long as we have leaders who are not visionary, we can come here to talk. I think the problem is electoral and political reform, first of all, so that we are able to get the right leaders into position.
Which is why they say election comes with consequences.
You understand? Right, so we need to get the right leaders into position.
Into offices.
But Nigerians will not do that, because they want a leader that will enter the office
and start sharing money.
Do you know why on election day? Do you know why most state governors does not stay in their state sometimes? No. They are running away from politicians who come to the office to collect money.
They are running away from politicians
who come to the office to analyze how they helped him win election,
so that they'll get their own money back.
They get their own share.
Please say that again.
See, those are some of the things. So the governor keeps sharing money, and when he finds out that he's almost emptying the state port, he will fly out of the state, so that when they come to the governor is not around. So those are the things. Nigeria deserves their leader, by the way. We deserve the kind of leadership
we have now.
But because we are talking about economic topic, we have to talk about, if, for example, we are able to get the right leadership, how do we come into having an appropriate fiscal policy? It is by getting the right, because it's not just about the governor or the president alone. Obasanjo did not have the best economic policy because of himself. He was a military man. But at least he did well. He assembled experts. Sanusi,
Okonjo-Iweala,
Akinwumi
Additionals, and the rest.
You understand? And those people came together and worked for Nigeria.
They are self together.
They came together and they worked for this country.
And we saw the effect.
And we saw the effect that our debt that was massive under the military was written.
That's true.
Do you understand? So if we have leadership that actually want to deliver on their promises, to develop economically is not a rocket science. It is about having the policies and staying true to the policies.
That's true.
But what we have found out in our system is that they present the paper. They are always about defending the paper. You know, they told us that our inflation rate is 34.6%.
Cardoso said this morning that if not that they controlled it, you would have hit 42.14%. I asked myself, in the recent, it's more than 42%.
In reality, Josh,
in reality, it's more than exactly. You go to the market on a daily basis.
It's a very plain. It's an interaction.
That was the question I asked Cardoso on the morning show this morning.
We all know that the inflation in the market is above 200%.
It's more than 40%.
It's above 200% for crying out loud. So those are the things. We have not come to terms to the fact that we need to tell ourselves the truth. And let me tell you, the reason why it has not created panic within them, it is because of our vast resources.
They have more to cover.
Our debt is still within our control.
140 trillion is within, 42 trillion is within control.
We are very rich in terms of resources.
142 trillion.
See, that is nothing. That's nothing. When you talk about the resources that we have, see, if you harness, for example, that money you are talking about, if you go to Zamfara alone,
the gold
and
alone,
kick out the Chinese that the process Chinese that the Nigerian politicians are using to mine illegal.
And we saw what happened there 2 days ago.
To do illegal mining. If you kick out the Chinese and all of those Nigerians that our politicians are using as a proxy to mine illegal, if you kick them out and make sure that our gold is mined and whatever we get comes into the Nigeria coffer, in 2 years, what is 142 trillion? So when you go to Bonu, the uranium that we have in that
over
place,
there.
and do you know that was what started the Boko Haram?
You seem to be going too far. High, but they don't know.
No. See, I want to be bad because we are talking. This program is going.
It's a wide.
So that will not be as if we are narrowing it down. When you go to I was in Edo North 2023, and then what I saw baffled me a lot. Do you know that limestone, you will be stepping on limestone going to where you are going to? In Edo North. So you don't even need to dig too far. You will be seeing it.
Let's not talk about the coal we have in Enugu.
You understand? You'll be stepping on it going. And yet, the governor will be here crying that we want to go and borrow. We need money.
When we have
all of, so if we harness all of those things and then allow them, channel them, if we focus on NNPC alone, you understand, and block the loopholes where the politicians
where they are looting
food. Because I have had a discussion with an engineer, a petrochemical engineer that had worked with the NNPC before he retired. He said that the process that the oil goes through to get the crude oil, he said that process that nobody can steal it.
Wow.
He said any oil that you see that somebody they said is stolen, there's government hand involved. He said because this thing goes through a lot of rigorous processes.
Yeah, rigorous processes.
You understand? So you cannot tell me that a vessel was stolen. A vessel takes about 21 days to load. 21 days we have Nigerian Navy, we have the Air Force, and you are telling me that it was stolen. So if we are able to deal with the oil cabals that the politicians use to steal our crude, and we block those loopholes, in 2 years, what is 142
So does it take,
trillion?
So blocking those loopholes, does it take a policy to be formulated at the legislature so as to get the president assent it before it becomes a law, so that those loopholes, what do you think could be done?
No, it doesn't need legislation.
Okay, so what
that is within the preview of the president's executive order. Look at what
Donald Trump is doing in the US already.
Okay. The president has enormous power.
So much power.
Especially in Africa.
So why is it not working? Could it be linked to political will, or what exactly?
Yeah, lack of political will is the problem, and the fact that the system is corrupt. Corruption is the system. See, for us to be able to get it right in Nigeria, we must fight corruption with with an iron fist, with a very strong hand, because corruption has become very, very endemic. But the problem is that the process that brings our president, our governors into power
is always process. It's always flawed.
That is why you see people like Ganduje being given different
positions.
So what is Ganduje doing in FAN? What is his background?
That's the question I asked.
What is his background that made him qualify to become the chairman of board of FAN?
Sometimes they say it's administrative position.
It's administrative, but for where we are right now as a nation, you need to put the right square. How do you say
square peg in square hole and round peg in round hole, not the other way around.
Put it that way. You need to employ to get people that can actually do this thing. People that have track record. Like I still make mention of Obasanjo, for example. How did Obasanjo assemble his? He looked at some of them were abroad. He looked at their record. He, as a private individual, as a corporate individual, they were able to run a firm like this. They were able to run a system like this. That if we bring this person and give him a free hand, he will. And he brought them, and it worked. But now, when they go into office, what they do is that they use economic policies to compensate political loyalists.
Call them political psychophants or so.
See, no matter how powerful you are, for example, in America, you see that the Democrats and the Republicans, they are almost like a sworn enemy. But when it comes to appointing people that hate the military, that they hate the economy, they are very,
they look
careful.
for the best hands.
They look for the best hand. You may not be so much loyal to the president,
so-called party.
You understand, but you know what you are doing.
Okay, so that being said, we have already established by virtue of the submission that a political will is needed, which is the veto power through an executive order. Right? Now, how does all of this affect
the economy generally and SMEs?
And the SME, the man on
let's
the street
wrap up. Let's wrap up. Who sells just like you as an entrepreneur.
All right. The 142 trillion will be paid by you and I.
Because the last time I checked, when it was 132, they said each Nigerians were owing whether 700,000. Then now it has increased. It's around 1 million thereabout.
What will not happen is that the economy will be diluted.
In what sense?
In the sense that the circulation of funds will be restricted.
Okay.
And then investors, especially foreign investors, will be very skeptical to come in. Because when your debt profile is like that, they know that when they come, you will use taxation to help to finish them because you want to meet up. See, these are the things.
No, the absolute truth is what you're saying.
Looking for foreign investors. But the things you are doing at home is anti what you are pursuing outside.
They claim they gained some investment at the very start of Tinubu's administration.
All of those things are paper. You see, there were a lot of lies that Ngelale told.
Before the guy resigned.
You understand? There were aid. So, but we are forgiving him because nature is taking care of him.
Not all Nigerians are forgiving him anyway.
But what we are saying is that there is this kind of, because, for example, the SMEs need funds to be able to consolidate their business and all of that. But when they go to the bank is struggling.
The process is tight.
The bank is struggling with the national policy.
That's true.
You get it. And so the ripple effect from the nation to the bank and to the SMEs, you see, a lot of businesses are folding up. You see, you go to the market, you see some shops locked. They say the person has not come for the last 6 months
1 week
because he has run maybe into debt. He has not been able to do, because when you go out there, the system, because where our country gets it wrong is that the country thinks that they can tax the people into prosperity.
Absolutely.
It doesn't work that way.
Just like what is happening in different sectors.
The economic power, as somebody once said.
That is wickedness.
Okay.
You understand? The president said that he was going to reduce the economic power of the Nigeria. That is absolutely out of it. You don't do that. You understand? Because you come to meet a very dwindling economy. You are supposed to build to increase the economic power. You understand? But the president's policies, of course, is not longer in news that it has not been working. It has not been working. And how it is affecting the everyday people in the market is that there is this kind of there's this kind of uncertainty around the market, because when you go to buy, if you are doing buying and selling like me, when you go to buy, you are not sure that you are still going to buy the same price
when you go to the next day.
Someone once said something to me. Sorry to butt in. Someone once said something to me when I called them for a flash drive in the Computer Village market. Guess what he said? Okay, wait, make I find out afternoon price.
They have to put a call across. It's not bad. When they put a call across, you want to buy something. Buy it now before they make that call.
Yes, how bad.
Okay, we need to start wrapping up. So conclusively, the effect on the economy and the SMEs.
The effect on the economy is that they will continue to be inflation.
Continue.
They will continue to be inflation.
But they are saying they want to tame inflation to 15%.
No, the thing is that, Lawrence, the reason why we are seeing some respite right now is because December, we just
came out from December and we entered the new year.
There were import of dollars.
So the people that were outside came in.
Yes, so that is why you are seeing the dollar at least gaining some strength. When the effect of those money that came in December erodes away, from February to March, the dollar will go back to its natural state, and the debt profile will increase because the more the naira nosedives, the dollar increases, and the debt profile will continue to create, and the effect will become harder. Except the government do something very drastic to be able to create
one thing they should do. One thing you think they should do as a wrap up?
One thing the government should do is that the money they have borrowed so far, they should channel it into production. We need to start producing. We are too much to be a consuming nation. A country of over 200 million people being a consuming nation is a crime against humanity.
We have to go.
So we need to produce.
We have to go.
Thank you.
We want to thank you very much for your time and your analysis. Josh, your parting shots.
Yeah, so basically, like he said, accountability and transparency
absolutely
in what we actually spend on.
All right.
Will save us from the indebtedness we find ourselves.
All right, that's the start of our show this afternoon. We thank you for your time, for being a part of the show. For our guests, we appreciate you for coming, for joining us to analyze the issue. I'm Lawrence Osifo, and we're saying see you again next week. And that'll be in a brand new month. Bye for now.